And you're back in the Bluffwood Studio 771. This is your host, Charles Barjon, and today we have an episode of Lit Politics. Today, our guests are not affiliated, and they do not represent their schools or any organization they work within. And we're just here to talk politics. So, without further ado, let's all introduce ourselves.
All right, I'm Angel Bradford, and I know Charles, the host, from organizing and doing work since our SU days.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caleb Holmes. I'm a graduate of Southern University in Political Science and Government, and that's how I know Charles. We were classmates and organizers together on campus.
Hey, everybody. I'm Caitlin Bradford Joshua. I am the twin sister of Angel. I'm a good friend of Caleb and both Charles. I'm working together, just intersectional work for the last few years.
Great. And as you guys all know, we live in a very, 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 very interesting time in this political atmosphere. And before we hop into any of the amendments or politics of elections coming up, we must talk about Amy Coney Barrett and the entire circus revolving around that. And as of around 45 minutes ago, CNN did report that the Senate voted to confirm President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, and Republicans who hold the majority in the upper chamber have pushed ahead with one of the quickest nomination proceedings in modern history. What are your takes?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they did it. I didn't think they'd have enough time. I didn't think they'd do it before the election.
Right.
But I guess I just didn't know Mitch McConnell. I guess I was being naive. Caleb, what are your thoughts?
So I actually have to completely disagree with Angel. I am not shocked.
Right.
Yeah.
We knew this. Yeah.
I think the only thing that shocked me is how fast they moved.
Yeah.
But Republicans going to do what Republicans going to do. That's lie, cheat, they wanted the seat, and they said, to hell with the Democrats. We're going to put them through no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, but Chuck Schumer and some of his talking points, said that they've lost all credibility. And to me, they really have lost all credibility. At this point, the Republicans play these games. I just think going forward, Democrats need to play a little bit of hardball. Like, hey, if we get the majority back, y'all are in the minority for a reason. And until we lose power, we said what we're going to do.
Right, and you play the political game. What about you, Caitlin?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Caleb. I didn't think that it would go as exponentially fast as it went, but I was almost certain that it would be close to November 3rd. So I'm not too shocked in that sense. But what I am disappointed about, I did think we'd get at least 2 or 3 more Republicans that would side against the vote for Amy Coney Barrett. So I'm a little disappointed with that. Maybe that was naive. But aside from the fact that it's an extreme insult by putting her into office, an insult to democracy, a threat to democracy, I would have to say that we really need to push the messaging as hard as we're pushing it behind these general gubernatorial elections, and make sure that Democrats and folks that believe in democracy are doing as much as they can to possibly show our elected officials that this is not what we want. So as soon as November 3rd is done, I'm willing to do the work. I'm sure you guys are too, to make sure that our voices are heard, that Amy Coney Barrett is not representative of our democracy. She's not representative of what the people want. And I'm hoping that folks get on board with that and that we don't let this just slide and take it laying down,
Right. Yeah. And even aside from elections, it's the imbalance that we now have. It's 6-3 now in the Supreme Court. And before we move on to the other pressing matters at hand, how do you feel about that imbalance when it comes to the justice system?
I have to hop in here for a second because, I was just about to say, I think what shocks me the most is the fact that, the people that said just a couple months ago, Murkowski, others, that they were going to wait. That I think the hypocrisy is what's killing me because at the end of the day, the calculation was worth it to them. It made more sense that this party that has really hijacked American democracy does not represent the majority of us. They had to make a point one last time when they know they're probably going to lose the Senate. They're definitely going to lose the presidency. And that part, it just kills me. I guess I'm always surprised in this era because I didn't think it could get this low. but I am okay not packing the court, but rebalancing the court and rebalancing democracy, because that 6-3, I think Amy Coney Barrett has shown like she is not a champion of any sort of human rights. And I think getting stuck in how cute she is, oh, she's a mother of 7, oh, her husband does the laundry, like getting stuck in these very, trivial, pointless conversations that were had during the hearings really distracted folks from the reality of what the Republicans were doing. Just because she's nice, I don't care. Like, she obviously cares more about the power and centering herself than actually defending democracy. Because if you have any ethics, you wouldn't even want Trump to be the person that nominated you, an illegitimate president with an illegitimate Mitch McConnell, and you want to be the Supreme Court nominee. I'm tired, honestly.
Well, Anjo, what do you mean by rebalance the court? Because I am in the affirmative of using the other language of, I'm not going to say it, but what do you mean by rebalance?
Because I feel like when we say packing, it sounds like we're doing something wrong. Or like it's payback. But it's not about payback. It's about our democracy has been hijacked at every level, like every judicial level, right? Like we know Trump has crammed in all these ideologues, all these conservatives, local, appellate or appellate, however you say that, and circuit courts are just full of people that represent Trump's values or lack thereof. So for me, we are reclaiming democracy. We're putting it back on track. We're not just relying on all these traditions that kept us in line when it should have been in the Constitution. It should have been written down. And that's the stuff that makes me mad, is this whole idea that this whole time our democracy was being held together by tradition. It should have been held by law.
Right.
And
Yeah.
As
100%.
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez said a few minutes ago on Twitter, I personally am in favor of expanding the court, only because when we look at the last 3 judges that Trump has appointed, I also see them, frankly, as illegitimate, because to me, his entire government is illegitimate. He lost by 3 million votes. He got lucky in 3 states, on the account of an old slavery compromise provision in the Constitution. And at large, he is not the president that we voted for. And by that definition, because the Republicans have lost the Senate in both 2016 and 2018, these are governments that the majority of people did not back. And, what they did isn't illegal. Is it wrong? Depends on the context. What they did wasn't illegal, but it surely is an affront to democracy and just the will of people. I mean, at the end of the day, less people in this country wanted this. And I don't know how any other way to say it. This is period.
I agree. Like Caleb, is like you're kind of just thinking over, the last couple of days, last couple of hours, as this is happening. I'm like replaying in my head the commercials that have been like flashing over the TV, just insinuating that Amy is this, ideal conservative pick. But I think what's most disturbing is, and I'm sure you guys are already familiar with the phrase of, we shouldn't be judged by our skin tone or, what we do or how nice we are, but by the content of our character. And she's shown time and time after again that her character is flawed. And to me, the decisions that she's made and the statements that she made even during her hearings were indicative of how she's not a good judge of character and I think, to me, when you look at some of the decisions and some of the statements she made over the last few weeks, all these statements basically show that she probably would have a problem when it comes to carrying out the law or interpreting the law. And to me, that's contradictory. And for that alone, she should have been disqualified as a pick. But I don't know. I think at this point, it's too disturbing to wrap your mind around. And I know folks are still just very much focused on getting out the vote and gearing up for next week. But we really need to kind of figure out what our direction is as of today when it comes to Supreme Court. Like, what's the plan? What's the strategy? And what can we get behind that is indicative of American democracy?
Right. And it's especially in a time where we have so many protests, so many ideas of how we can change the American government and ways of justice. It's almost comical to see how everything's aligning with elections and then just the propaganda from both sides, and it's interesting. And that leads us into a conversation about these local elections, especially here in Louisiana. And to start off, I want to start with the First Amendment concerning abortions, and it reads as follows. Do you support an amendment declaring that to protect human life, a right to abortion and the funding of abortion shall not be found in the Louisiana Constitution? What would you all say is your initial shock response to that? And also, I would like to speak on the language of the amendment as well and how it's very vague.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to go first before I hop in?
You can start off.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like, and I think we all kind of, talk about this all the time. This just comes up too often. We've had bills over the last 4 or 5 years in the Louisiana legislature. We have had too many bills about this. And as of right now, Roe v. Wade is settled law, settled case law. And I feel like it's just almost insulting to the voters to keep kind of bringing this up when it doesn't change state or federal law. And so you're essentially just saying like, hey, do you think this is unethical and shouldn't be in the Constitution? But it doesn't make it illegal. And it hinges completely on whether or not Roe v. Wade is overturned, which, granted, with Amy Coney Barrett, maybe that is a possibility, but it just seems inappropriate to keep coming back to the voters with this amendment or with this bill or with this particular constitutional change, especially because the federal law, the highest court in the land, has said this is not an issue. It's not illegal, and women have a right to it.
Right. As a man, I'm really not qualified to. I'm tired of it. My own personal feelings. I don't care. What a woman does with her body is her choice. And what's odd to me is just the quote unquote the pro-choice side. That's the name is the choice. It is a choice. If you don't want to get one, then don't go get one. Simple as that. There's no other way to describe it. But there are instances where the mother's life were in danger, or there are instances where, the mother was raped, or there are just instances where the mother does not feel comfortable bringing a child into this world. Who are you, some arbitrarily other person, to tell them that they can or can't? And I like to use another country, a very religious Catholic country. Ireland had banned abortion, and they eventually took it away because even though it was banned in law, guess what people were doing? Still getting it. They were going over to England and getting them.
Yep.
So, what are you going to do? You're going to stop women from going? If they got what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking off of you, Caleb, like for me, it's so many reasons why this should not be a government issue. It just like starting with the most recent thing you stated, like we've done the research, we've seen the numbers, we know the data. When abortions are banned or access is limited, abortion actually goes up. The numbers, the amount of women that travel and spend money or get it unsafe and illegally goes up, and it skyrockets. So I think that's not the way to go. I think we need to focus as a society on, if we are quote unquote pro-choice or pro-family or pro-life, then that means making sure that folks have access to healthcare and education and medical benefits and all the things, including, government assistance programs, which a lot of times those that align with the right, who claim that they are pro-life, do not support those things. So I think we have to take a step back and understand where we are as a society, and then also understand the needs. And the need right now is not to shut down access of abortions, especially since as a recent mom myself, a mom of 2 years, I know if I ever had a moment in my pregnancy that was unsafe, or there was a moment when my husband may have had to choose between my daughter or myself or his wife, that is a decision that folks should be able to make on their own without the government involved in that conversation. And as we hear today all too often, we're constantly being told that, government's way too into our business too much. Why are they telling us what to do? This is socialism. Talk about socialism, communism. If the government is telling you what to do with your body, we're there. So, and I'm over this conversation and I understand as a Christian woman myself, I would love to, make sure that our neighbors are taken care of and folks have what they need and people have options. And access to adoptions, et cetera. The list is long. But at the end of the day, there really is no benefit to limiting access of abortion. There's none. And if we want to see folks continue to take advantage of Planned Parenthood, which offers a host of other things, we shouldn't be defunding those programs. Which also goes back to the need for us to make sure that if we really are pro-life and about making sure that folks have sustainability and equitable lifestyles and equitable wages, then we need to really look at the entire piece of the pie, not just one piece of it. So for me, I'm gonna have to say vote no. Absolutely. To me, I don't see any advantage to voting in favor of shutting down abortion. And like I said, and I'll reiterate time and time again, the moment we create a foundation for socialism or communism in that way, we can kiss American democracy goodbye.
Well,
you take this while me and Caleb are.
From the self-described socialists in the room, socialism, as I see it and define it, revolves around choice.
Right.
And in this case, that means women have the choice to choose.
Exactly.
But
I see what you're saying. You're trying to address these are often the talking points that people use is socialism, communism, and I get what you're saying. We can have that conversation hopefully in another podcast where we really kind of dissect socialism versus communism versus liberal, conservative, progressive. These are words we can throw around that don't even have the meaning that they're supposed
Agreed. And and exactly. I'm throwing out a correlation of that is the talking points that usually right-wing folks use when speaking of abortions or speaking of left-wing or Democrats becoming too big.
I'm glad you brought that up because they always talk about the left wanting control of your life, but it seems to me it's the right. I mean, when you really think it, to me it seems like it's controlling, and maybe there's some squeamish people in the audience. It's about controlling people's sex lives. And at the end of the day, what goes on in their bedroom is none of your business.
Right.
If people want to have relations just to have fun, all I can be, use protection. Other than that, I mean, do what you want to do.
But going back to Amendment 1,
yeah.
and just from a strategic standpoint, I don't want to every election cycle we have to argue about.
Absolutely, every single time.
Kind of summarizing where we all come from. If you want, first of all, under Democratic leadership, you see a decrease in abortions because you see an increase in other programs. And if the goal is really to save lives, you've got to look at the data, you've got to look at the numbers, and it's not constantly voting on the same amendments or ballot initiatives or bills over and over that don't actually achieve the goal that you seek. If you want to save lives, this ain't it. The answer is no. What's Amendment 2?
Right.
Right. And before we move on, what came to mind was two things particularly. The first was it's almost like a separation of church and state that we don't see. We still see a overarching personal opinion within politics. And then the devil's advocate in me came up, and I said, what would be the final nail in the coffin to those people who like to argue, well, I don't want my taxes going towards anything that has to do with abortion or Planned Parenthood. I was curious as to what would be your nail yourself that you nail into that coffin.
I don't think
my taxes going to all these military invasions.
Right.
Okay, no, that's not the response. Isn't there study around the fact that taxes aren't really going to Planned Parenthood, right, y'all? We'll have to circle back to that, but
we can probably pull that for the next podcast if folks want to delve into that a little deeper. But that's absolutely correct. The amount of taxes that goes towards Planned Parenthood is so minute. It's almost non-existent. So I don't know where that argument came from, but if we can literally pull the data that shows that there's no correlation between people paying large amount of taxes or even a significant amount of taxes to make a difference
for abortion, like
for abortion, specifically for abortion. Yeah,
maybe
correct.
against Planned Parenthood. Sometimes I should have done a deeper dive on that. But great devil's advocate, but I think also the majority of their procedures have nothing to do with abortion.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Most is like preventative measures and typical gyno care. Exactly.
Yeah.
And even with that, that's not how government works. I mean, you don't get to sit there on a line and say, well, I want my taxes to go. No, that's what we
and folks, and I'll just say this really quickly, folks fail to realize Planned Parenthood doesn't do the abortions. Like it gets sent out to third party. Then, folks start paying at that point. So it's a whole system. It's not Planned Parenthood responsible for abortions and taxes related to abortions.
There's the practitioners, what you're
saying. Right, practitioners, private clinics, etc. So.
Right. It's one of those political baseless claims people use to trick people up and keep people talking in circles and circles and circles. But with that, we'll move on to Amendment 2, which states, do you support an amendment to permit the presence or production of oil or gas to be included in the methodology used to determine the fair market value of an oil or gas well for the purpose of property assessment? What are your views?
Yeah. Right. I know this one. Can you repeat it one more time, though?
Yep. It says, do you support an amendment to permit the presence or production of oil or gas to be included in the methodology used to determine the fair market value of an oil or gas well for the purpose of property assessment?
Right. So it's like including the oil or gas well in the property assessment. So like, I have a split answer here.
Right.
So technically people can vote whatever way they want. I don't think it'll necessarily matter in all cases. I don't think it's going to increase property values across the board. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's other factors. So that's kind of a misleading amendment, which is why I say, that's why I say no. And then I also say no because we're not spending enough time on these amendments in the first place. And I'm not even sure if it's fair to put this up for a vote without further context, which is an issue that you're generally going to hear me repeat with all of these amendments. So, no.
What would you say, Caleb?
I have to defer to Joe when it comes to all these amendments because there's so many. And even as someone who graduated in political science, some of these are just badly written. And if I'm struggling, or if you have attorneys I've heard from are struggling to understand these amendments, it's like you're trying to fudge an answer. And, the question then becomes, who wrote the amendment and who are their backers?
Right.
Yeah, true.
It's a true question.
Right. Yeah. And then also, I think it's the reason why I also hate it is because it's written to kind of presume, like, if you have oil on the property, people are going to think, it increases the property value. I'm not sure if that's always the case. And I'm also not trying to create more provisions for oil and gas.
Right.
So,
all the issues we have.
Yeah, that's my stance on that one. Michelle, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm not trying to make any more provisions for oil and gas. So that first line right there, when it says, do you permit the presence of production of oil? No, I don't. So I simply no for number 2 for me.
Especially in Louisiana, in our state.
Especially in Louisiana.
It's a dying economy. They're bottoming out. We saw this with COVID. They were already declining in their value. People are being laid off. And now you're trying to come up with another thing to make more money? No, it's time to transition. It's time to look into other economies, renewables.
Right.
Yeah. And that ain't it.
I agree 100%. And that brings us into Amendment 3. And it states, do you support an amendment to allow for the use of the Budget Stabilization Fund, also known as the Rainy Day Fund, for the state costs associated with disaster declared by a federal government? Would you all like me to read that again?
Yes, please.
All right.
Amendment you can 3. Read it again. That's fine.
Do you support an amendment to allow for the use of the Budget Stabilization Fund, also known as the Rainy Day Fund, for the state associated for state costs, associated with a disaster declared by the federal government?
So I'm a no. Again, I don't. Number one, the federal government should have it. And especially, I hate that over-reliance on states because we have to balance our budgets. And that's a requirement, which I don't think should be a requirement, but that's another conversation. And no, I don't. Because with the frequency of our disasters due to climate change, that sounds like a hot mess for a rainy day fund. And also, rainy day funds should be more exclusive than that. And again, it's the federal government's responsibility. Sorry if I sound like a welfare queen, but they should have the states back. Something.
I'm going to have to agree. I would vote no. Just most recently, we're doing some research regarding the New Orleans Convention Center's rainy day fund or reserve, whatever you want to call it, and those funds being misappropriated and not being handled properly. I don't see where Louisiana benefits or the people, rather, because I'm about the people versus the business for the state of Louisiana. So I would have to say no. I don't see how it's an advantage to folks that are affected by these natural disasters or these hurricanes, et cetera. And just watching that play out in real time within the last few months due to the pandemic, due to COVID, and that being such an ordeal and folks getting the short end of the stick, I'm going to say no for future rainy day funds.
Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts, Caleb?
No, only because of the confusion around it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, like why? Yeah.
Well, it's rushed. And moving into Amendment 4, it says, do you support an amendment to limit the growth of the expenditure limit for the state general fund and dedicated funds and to remove the calculation of its growth factor from the Constitution?
So I voted no on this. Or did I wait? Read the question again.
You voted no.
Want me to read it still?
I voted.
Because we're buddies.
If I remember reading it correctly, I voted.
If you remember reading it correctly.
I voted to get rid.
And this is why they should expound. This is exactly why they should expound.
No, this is why it's being clear English.
Yeah.
Right.
But I read about this one too, so go ahead.
But Caleb, we're listening.
If I read it correctly, I was basically saying no, there shouldn't be a cap on the growth. Spending needs to go up. It just needs to go up. And putting an artificial cap on it, can make things, if the state decides to do some huge infrastructure project and there's a cap on state spending, if we have to spend $50 billion, but the cap says we can only go to 35, that doesn't make any sense. If the money needs to be spent, it just needs to be spent.
Right.
So I voted no on this under the presumption that was what they meant in the language of the amendment. Can
you read it one more time, though? Because I think I read more about this one, but read it one more time just to make sure I'm a no.
Definitely. Amendment 4 states, do you support an amendment to limit the growth of the expenditure limit for the state general fund and dedicated funds and to remove the calculation of its growth factor from the Constitution?
Okay, yeah, then no. Not with the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no.
All right.
Plus, I think that would just lead to them, doing cuts and stuff to stuff that's important. Right. And we don't need that.
Yeah.
They're always going after healthcare and schools, so... And
that's true. And it just gives them a way and enables them a way to further block progress.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And so with that being said, we can move on to the Fifth Amendment. And it states, do you support an amendment to authorize local governments to enter into cooperative endeavor, ad valorem tax exemption agreements with new or expanding manufacturers establishment for payments in lieu of taxes?
Great.
That's a hard no.
That's a hard. Also, why'd you put ad valorem in there? But whatever.
It says it on there.
But you're trash for writing it like this. Y'all don't speak like this. But anyway.
Right.
I don't know, Caleb. Are you chomping at the bit to talk? Okay. The whole idea that a corporation, probably a polluting one, because that's most of them, would give more money or donate more money than they would pay in taxes is a joke. Mm-hmm. So it would just bully. I think what's maddening about it more than anything, this is going to bully local entities into agreements they might not even want. But you give even more power to the corporations and the entities that already have tax exemptions. We all know this. We all know about ITEP. We all know about this like insanity. And it's just time for it to stop. And the fact that you would pivot this to voters, yet again, I'm a no. And Caleb, you can take it away.
And Caleb, like, if you'll expound, just because, like, I meet people all the time who want us to kind of elaborate a little bit more on what ITEP is. A lot of folks don't know that, local government, municipalities got, thrown this responsibility. So if you want us, like, kind of go into depth about what that is and, like, how it impacts us, I think that would be helpful.
So I voted hell no. In simplicity, basically, polluting corporations, they don't want to pay any taxes. They just don't want to pay. Yet you want to pollute the air that we have to breathe. You want to use the water for your manufacturing that we have to drink. You have to transport your products on the roads that the rest of us pay for. When your plant catches on fire, you have to use the fire department that we all paid for. So to me, if you want to exist in civil society, you have to pay your taxes. Otherwise, you can get out and go. But you can't go anywhere because you're not going to drill off the coast of Florida because they said, no, you're not going to ruin our beaches. You can't do it in California because you're not going to ruin our beaches. So it's like, look, where you going to go? You're going to stay right here. You're going to manufacture everything. You're going to help contribute to society.
Right.
I agree. And for all the folks.
Well said.
Oh, you got it, Jill. You got it.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, essentially it's a program that existed for decades that allows, it was supposed to be, quote unquote, because but it was supposed to attract more businesses here, right? And so, like, you have these multi-billion dollar, million-dollar corporations that moved here, and the incentive was for them to create jobs. And ideally, that's the thing that happened. But instead of creating the job and, getting that initial tax exemption, they've just renewed and renewed and renewed and renewed, year after year, decade after decade, sometimes even renewing that exemption on projects that have already occurred, jobs that were not created. And so it's just been endless benefits. Sometimes we are paying them more for creating jobs than they're actually paying the people. And the folks aren't making $1 million jobs or not being paid $1 million to work for these corporations and entities. And so it's just unfair to the workers. It's unfair to the people of Louisiana. It's unfair to our land, air, and water that we need to live with for the next infinity. And so 5 is nothing but another grab. It's nothing but another power grab and insulting to our intelligence and to our localities that were really bullied over the last 2-3 years, or 2 mostly, when they had an opportunity to say no to these exemptions and actually, get businesses to pay their fair share. And we don't need to create any more barriers for localities to defend themselves. We need to support them, and we need to hold these industries accountable, and we're not going to do that with Amendment 5.
I mean, it's basically it's a sellout to the chemical companies.
Yeah.
They just don't want to pay taxes. They've never wanted to pay taxes, yet they always want to reap the benefits.
Right. Reminds me of Amazon with Jeff Bezos.
Right. Same situation. And I'm so over this Louisiana fear factor of folks are going to leave us. We're not going to have jobs. As you said, Caleb, no one's going anywhere. No corporation can go anywhere in this country but Louisiana and pay as little as they do on taxes or get the best cuts. So this idea that we're scaring folks away by voting no on some of these amendments, like this amendment, it's not going to happen. So I'm hoping, I don't know what we're polling at with this amendment, but I'm really hoping that folks turn it down.
Definitely. Because also, I mean, the people are the government. So there's nothing to be afraid of if we're truly what we say we are.
Right.
So
Well, no, then,
you have the
then
power.
we get into a little bit of socialism where we're democratizing the economy, and people actually have a choice in what goes on in their economy. And then, like I said before, where you gonna go? You're not gonna. Exxon is not about to rebuild a processing plant the size of what we have here in Baton Rouge. The plant is huge. It will take years upon years of construction, permits, all of that. It's cheaper just to pay the tax.
Yeah.
Fair.
Definitely.
It's cheaper to pay a fraction.
If you're killing us with your pollution, you might as well make some money off of dying. So,
Yeah.
And that brings us right into the Sixth Amendment. And that one states, do you support an amendment to increase the maximum amount of income a person may receive and still qualify for the special assessment level for residential property receiving the homestead exemption?
No. How much more do we want people to never pay their taxes? And never pay, how much more do we want to expand homestead exemption? No. If you make, whatever the number was, if you make higher enough, you have enough money to pay rent. I don't get that.
Absolutely. I think Louisiana has one of the most generous homestead exemptions there is. So I would say a hard no as well.
yeah, Louisiana has one of the newest ones. That's why Louisiana has one of the higher home ownership rates in the country, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact figure of homestead exemption, but most people's homes fall under it. So most people are already getting their regular homestead exemption. But one of the things, this is actually a problem with Louisiana is Louisiana, because of its resource-rich economy, people have gotten used to a whole bunch of services at a basically subsidized cost.
Absolutely.
All these benefits that we have, and this largely stems from our oil days. Our homestead exemption should not even be this large. And so what people are complaining about, I don't want my taxes to go up. You're paying for it just in other ways. Yeah. So wouldn't it just be easier to take it off at the front end? That way it's already upfront and paid for. And in this through the homestead exemption.
Yeah.
I think it's also important for us to recognize that, if you want the quote-unquote good schools, the good neighborhoods, the well-funded police departments, the well-funded social work departments, if you want community services, that stuff costs. And I'm not interested in regressive taxes that disproportionately hurt poor people. I'm not interested in that. Mm-hmm. But we can't just piecemeal this. We can't just pass these amendments that amendment that helps more people out when we're not, now on a tangent, when we're not raising or actually establishing a minimum wage or a fair wage, and we're not helping people in any other way. We have to pay our taxes, and we have to stop living like a poor state because we're not one. And so we have the resources, we have the businesses. It's just there's just too much impetus on the middle class and poor folks to carry the weight of the state. And that's why you have these debacles over homestead exemption. You're trying to raise that. We have to invest in our community services, and six won't do that. So, no.
All right, I'll move on. But before I do move on, I like when you said we're not a poor state. We don't need to live like that anymore. And that was the real ringer that I liked about that. But moving into the Seventh Amendment, do you support an amendment to create the Louisiana Unclaimed Property Permanent Trust Fund to preserve the money that remains unclaimed by its owner or owners?
Right.
And
I did read about this one too. And it's funny because you could go both ways on this one, but from what I've gathered, this has never been, the state of Louisiana has never struggled to pay folks. They've never gone, in debt or in the red trying to pay folks. I don't even think this is an issue. I'm not even sure. And if it's getting in that debacle that occurred between the treasurer and the governor, we don't need to wade in those waters. I don't think it's an issue. I say no.
Yeah, it's really a non-issue. I would question whoever wrote it. Did you write it just so you had something on the books and say,
Right.
"Hey, I wrote this"? And, I really see it as a non-issue for the most part. Which brings up the point: why do we vote on so many amendments? We should have brought this up earlier, but like we vote on so many amendments. What do we pay y'all for? All 139 or 149 of y'all, 144. 105 plus 39. 144 of y'all in the State House. What do we pay y'all for? Because if you're going to kick us every issue, we could just have a direct democracy, even though that is actually...
Yeah.
As someone who believes in democracy as me and believes in choice in every facet, a direct democracy is too much because I'm not going to vote every 2 weeks. We elect you guys every 4 years. We give you a salary that I think is rather low in the state house. But you only work 2 or 3 months out of the year. What's the point of y'all being there if you're going to keep kicking all these issues to us? Do your job. Actually take some hard votes. Do some critical thinking. And do your job like everyone else gets up in every morning and do.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I think there's also the case, and I heard this from a good friend of mine, shout out to Megan, who always talks about our legislature being full-time, which is another conversation for another day, but I'd love to see a full-time legislature that's not allowed to have conflicts. No, you can't be a lawyer for the oil and gas.
Right.
No, you can't have a side hustle with, what's the folks that sue all the time when they crash into your car? I forgot what that's called.
Attorney injuries.
Oh, yeah, it's all that. But until that's an option, I agree with Caleb. I'm sick of the responsibility being pivoted to the people. And you're writing in language that's not understandable. And it's complicated for no reason. And honestly, if they would stop playing politics all the time, stop voting in these committees down party line, have actual debates for more than whatever amount of few minutes that they took on this, robust discussion, get back to policy, get back to being a state that is a wild card, that can have the Huey P. Longs and the Bobby Dindals and the John Bel Edwards. A unique state for the Deep South. And all of this foolishness is not reflective of that. And so I don't want to keep voting on these amendments either. And I don't think you get a fair vote because people don't have a context of where that came from, who backs it up. And that's generally why I say no to all of them until there is some clear leadership that stops with this foolishness. Mm-hmm. I would love it if Sheck Snyder and Cortez would do that and stop with the games, stop with the politics, have actual discourse.
All right. And before I move on to the proposition, are there any more comments about the 7th Amendment?
Nope.
All right.
I think we can all agree that we hear it all day, every day. There's too many, and I don't know what they're saying. So, obviously, people are sick of it. So, I agree with you both. Something has to change with that, but obviously it won't be tonight. You can move on.
And that concludes the amendments, and we move into the proposition. And the proposition states, shall sports wagering activities and operations be permitted in the parish of blank? And which pertains to the argument about gambling and those activities. What are your standpoints?
God forgive me. At this moment, I say yes. I mean, we already gamble. I mean, it's hard for me to say no on this when we have casinos. We have the LeBurges. We have the Belle of Baton Rouge. I don't know if it's called that anymore. We have casinos all across the state. Yeah, Hollywood. Jill, I completely agree with you. I've talked to several different attorneys to tell me what would be like the repercussions of this one, and nothing came back to me as negative. So I haven't really heard any side of the story that states that this would be, a disadvantage for Louisiana people. So I saw nothing wrong with it. Like you said, folks already gamble. I myself don't gamble, but I am not against someone else doing it. And I feel like if we're already doing it, let's just, expand it, legalize it, give more people access. So I'm totally fine with the gaming sports world doing their thing. And I voted yes to this one.
So I also voted yes to it. I personally have gambled before.
I did $5 once.
Huh?
I did $5 and walked away.
Yeah, I did like $10 and was mad because I lost. I was like, you know what? I just see it as, with other vices, I would much rather them be regulated than be underground, under the nose, and that includes gambling. So I would rather, like with the casinos now, you can go spend your check, but you get too reckless, they're going to kick you out. I would much rather it be in a controlled, regulated space with controlled and regulated rules. Not because I've even seen the YouTube ad about this stuff, and they're right. Like, people are already doing these bets anyway. I mean, I know people who do the football cards. They bet on the games. It's all
fantasy football. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. But taking it to another level he's right, by betting with it. And I think we're one of the last states to do this. So I don't see why.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, other states around us don't have casinos, and people come here for our casinos. So that's kind of, I don't understand the push against it. As long as, Caleb was alluding to, there's supports for people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people get addicted to that sort of gambling, but.
Well, I feel like you can get addicted to anything, really. But as long as there's regulations and support for people who do get addicted or anything, I have no issue with just like with any other, the pro-choice side. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it.
Leave it alone.
Yeah,
shouldn't keep you up at night.
Then don't do it. Keep your money. You feel lucky? Hey.
I guess we're all in agreement. We vote yes on this one.
Yeah. And we're not. I guess we're just thematically not into regulating morality.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part.
And that concludes all the amendments on this local election ballot. And that brings us or before I go there, do you guys have any concluding statements about the amendments?
No, I just wanted to point out that there's 7 amendments. That last one's a proposition, right? I'm just clarifying that for those watching.
All right. So with that, we can talk about this mayoral race and how that ties into the Sewerage and Water Board. What are your standpoints on this? What are the deets? I'm not very educated in this.
Sorry. That's Sharon Weston's room.
Yeah. And
not Sewage and Water Board.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's not Sewage and Water Board.
Oh, okay. What is it?
That's Sharon Weston Broom.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I wonder what this mayoral race has to do with the water board. So I'm very interested to learn about this. Well, that changes everything.
SWB. SWB.
Are y'all gonna cut that out?
It's great comedy. I would leave it in. Very pure moment.
Wait, who are the candidates
For the mayoral race. Let's see.
That's Sharon Westenbroom, Matt Watson, Steve Carter.
Sorry, over. Mayor President Sharon Westenbroom.
Steve Carter, Watson, Denise Marcel, Jordan Piazza. Who are we missing?
How many are there? 7?
There's 7, yeah.
And no offense, if they're not really known, then...
Caleb.
We said Matt. Okay, Piazza, Matt Watson, Carter, Marcel, Mayor President Sharon Westenbroom.
There's let me see. I see 8 candidates. They're saying.
Holy smokes!
I'm looking.
Oh, Eric Gaylord. I forgot. Yeah.
Okay.
What are your?
Who's the other two?
Right now, it's not loading. I'm running off a hotspot. My apologies for that.
It's okay. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, okay. Well, Kate, while you look up the other two, you want me to...
Yep, you can start.
Okay, so what are our thoughts? So, like, honestly, obviously, I think we all agree, re-elect Mayor President Sharon Westenbroom.
I have Sharon Westenbroom, Steve Carter, Matthew Watson, Denise Marcel, Jordan Piazza, Frank Smith III.
Frank Smith, that's who
it was.
And Eric Gaillard.
Gaylord, whatever. Don't remember.
Eric Gaillard.
Yeah, that's what the commercial says. All right, so that's 7, right? That's not 8.
1, 2, 3.
That felt like 6.
7. That's 7.
7.
That's 7? All right, we got 7.
Was it because Tara Wicker fell out?
Yeah.
Okay. Matt Watson, right off the bat, that's a no for me because he supported St. George. And I think if you're a divisive candidate in that way, like if you're really encouraging the capital city or not opposing the capital city falling apart, you can't possibly run the parish. That's not unifying. Any other thoughts on Matt Watson?
I don't like him because of his stank attitude and because he voted no on minimum wage.
Okay, so Caleb, you took me back with that one. Anyways, yeah, one of the first things I ever attempted to do with Mac was to come to some type of agreement on raising minimum wage, and not necessarily saying what number that is, but it's very clear that Baton Rouge needs to raise theirs. So, but Matt was very adamant about us not needing to raise minimum wage. He didn't vote in favor of a resolution that would have supported those who wanted to raise minimum wage, and to me that just says a lot. If you can spend certain Saturdays helping the homeless under the interstate, then I think you can look for ways and avenues to help them financially. And obviously, to me, starting off at $7.25 is not one of those ways. So that's one for me. And then most recently voting no to the Alton Sterling settlement in City Council. That, yeah, absolutely no go for me.
Okay, Jordan Piazza.
I don't think I really know about Jordan. He wants to make Baton Rouge hip and cool for the young folks.
I'm a little bit torn because, I feel like with him, I think some of these candidates are out of step with who EBR is and what he's doing. I think as we're trending more blue, we're trending more, or EBR's trending more blue, more progressive, more. I just don't think that campaigning as a Trumper is necessarily being a huge supporter of President Trump, especially in this very vitriolic year, is the move. So I think, and I like that he's young and trying to appeal, but I struggle with Matt and Watson and Piazza's kind of duality of North Baton Rouge is scary and awful and full of criminals and scared away the St. George people, but let me make you awesome. You know what I mean? I just don't think you can do that.
No, you can't. You absolutely cannot. And I think just watching them both in dialogue amongst all the different forums that different organizations put on, the conversations and the rhetoric that Jordan used during those forums were alarming and disturbing as a Black woman. And I'll just be honest with that, including the way I'm almost certain, I want to make sure that I quote this properly. In one of his statements, he was clear about kind of, going up on law enforcement, increasing law enforcement in certain areas, in certain zip codes. And even though I definitely agree and know that we cannot do society, we cannot do communal policing without actual law enforcement, I think that Baton Rouge is trending towards wanting a better relations amongst the people and law enforcement and doing some type of community policing together simultaneously. And I think that can coexist without upping law enforcement, especially those that don't reside in those zip codes, to police in those areas. And Jordan was very adamant about his plan or his vision for doing that. And to me, that was disturbing and alarming. And even some of the statements that he made regarding business and how he plans to bring business to Baton Rouge, or lack thereof, North Baton Rouge, was alarming to me as well. I love that he's young, and I love that he brings something new to the table, but I don't think it's the right fit for, like you said, Angel, for what Baton Rouge needs right now, nor is it indicative of what society in Baton Rouge wants.
Yeah. Are you looking them up, Caleb? I think that's the Caleb thing to do. Okay, so there's Piazza, Watson. We'll come back to Mayor President Sharon Westenberg. Denise Marcel.
Why is she running?
I feel like from a strategic point, right? From like a strategic place, we know the majority of people, or the majority of folks of color and the majority of Democrats are going to go for Mayor President Sharon Westenberg. So I'm not sure it made sense to split the vote. And that's really all I can say on that. What do y'all think?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand Denise has a long history and political career. And so I'm not going to discredit that or take away from the work that she has done. But I do agree. I feel like, but I know we're going to get to Sharon, and I'm going to definitely harp on that long and hard. But for the time being, I'll just say in respecting Black leadership and respecting another Black woman's leadership, I didn't see fit for Denise to get into this race. If Sharon was doing a lousy job, if she felt like she could truly do better, that's one thing. But it's not that situation. And I think that we're all going to pretty much agree on this call that Sharon's done a phenomenal job, and she's laid the foundation for 4 more years. So I don't understand, like Caleb said, why Denise felt the need to get in the race.
Well, I'm not going to speak for Denise's perception of Sharon. I mean, obviously she feels she hasn't done a good enough job. That's why, at the base of her logic, that's why she's running. To me, one of the things, I'll be honest, I've never considered her a serious candidate, only because you have an incumbent mayor, a Democrat, and then Denise has never promoted anything that kind of stands out to me. So because she ran back in 2016 and didn't get very much traction. And even here on her website, it says stand up to crime and the underlying issues that causes it. And one of the things that stands out to me at first is his working with the Baton Rouge area chamber, the Chamber of Commerce. Aren't usually the same pro-business, conservative-leaning groups who oppose labor rights for workers, minimum wage increases. So, if you have a worker who works at the Burger King on what is that? Harding Boulevard.
Okay.
They shop at the Walmart up there in Baker, and they get caught stealing from the Walmart. And there's, they have $100 worth of food, but the bill only came up to $65. They don't have the money to buy food. They aren't making enough money. I don't see how partnering with a group that has been routinely shooting down any form of pro-worker policies, I don't see how that's helpful. I'm not saying you can engage with a conversation with them, but it would just seem that because you're bringing this up, you're going in under the presumption that they're going to also operate in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
And they show that they haven't. And then one of the other things is it says support large and small businesses. I get it. We all want to support businesses, but one of the things I have to make the distinction of, owning a business is not an innate right. And because of that, we offer you the benefit of owning a business by you pay a lower rate of tax when you own a business on the business income. As well as, of course, you are providing a service. You're giving people a job, all of that. But most large businesses end up manipulating markets, and people aren't starting on the same page. A mom and pop shop isn't able to compete with Walmart, who has a list of lawyers and tax breaks and influence of politicians. And I don't think, I'm one of those people that subscribes to, there shouldn't be any special interest with politicians. The only way they should get their funding is either public.
You can go sneeze if you need to sneeze.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm just a little stuffy. Publicly funded elections or in-person contributions. You know,
Yeah.
It was $27 was his average. I mean, yeah, the $20. You know, all politicians are going to be beholden to their donors. I would much rather be, you know, I would feel much more comfortable when your donors are regular people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you, Caleb. At this point, if I see any politician, especially a local one, saying anything else about supporting small or large business instead of saying workers, like I want to hear the word workers at this point. Like we are done. Louisiana should be the poster child for taking care of small and large businesses, large corporations. As y'all said, polluting corporations. Like we are the poster child for that. We are done with that. We can put a check there. I am more worried at this point about workers, our people, and like Jill said earlier, a state where if we're not a poor state and we have the resources and we need to stop acting like a poor state, then why are we having poor people? And that's simply because we don't take care of the workers. So at this point, if your tagline for your campaign is not workers first, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I like that. Workers first. Instead of like other stuff, it's just so cliche. I was about to say a phrase, but I was like, wait, stop.
And of course, just to cover my bases, this is not a complete dig against Marcel.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
He has some great qualities. I'm really thinking strategic wise, we just don't want to slip up and lose to someone that would be even more detrimental. Well, I don't think Mayor President Chair Weston Broom is detrimental, but we don't want to slip up and like leave space for, you know, any of the other candidates to come in that just aren't what EBR needs. So that leaves us with Steve Carter, that leaves us with E.R. Gayroyd, that leaves us with, and then the mayor, right? I think that's everybody.
Yeah, that's everyone. And Frank Smith, who recently, well, we can start there. Frank Smith recently said, as sweet as he is at a bowling alley event, that he's not trying to win. He just wanted to show the city of Baton Rouge that we need something new and fresh. And I can respect that. And I appreciate the honesty as well. And so with him saying that he didn't necessarily want to win the race, I just kind of move on to the next person. If y'all have an analysis of him, let me know. But I think that's all I got from him at this point. But so I'll move over to Steve Carter, who up into the ninth hour, folks will tell you is in the middle, moderate, not as conservative as we think he is. All those things are not true. And respectfully so, I'm going to call a spade a spade. Steve has been very transparent with his education plan or lack thereof, or his desire to stay out of education fights when most needed. And for me, that alone, with Baton Rouge having such a just such discrepancies and gaps in the education system, we don't have room for anyone that's going to sit in any elected office to represent Black and brown children or not want to represent Black and brown children in the education space. So for me right there, that alone, that is, I'm out with Steve.
Yeah, well, what do you mean with that? Because like, I think what trips a lot of people up is I don't believe Steve Carter supported St. George, which I love about him.
Yeah, no.
And so I can see how he comes across as a moderate. And I also, let me just lift up that I understand everyone that voted for St. George did not necessarily know the context or history of like our school system, which me and Kayla were just talking about on a different call of just like, this goes back decades of how our divisive government or like our plan of government and all the private interests, you know, laid the foundation for us to have public school systems that we call bad, but there's reasons for that. And also I don't think it's bad. I think it's great, but whatever. We're products of it. I'm proud of that. But when you say Steve Carter has kind of like stayed out of the fight, like, do you have an example or what do you mean by that? Because we know like mayors, of course, don't run the school board, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Mayors don't run the school board, but I'm speaking of him from his political career in the state house. So obviously not on the campaign trail anytime soon, but a few years back, just when we needed him to take a stand on some issues in the education realm and in the public education space, he literally said that was not his forte. And to me, anyone that's going to take themselves out of that fight in a city, like I said, that has such a gap in education for Black and brown students when compared to white students, we don't have time for anyone that's not going to take a stand for us, or take a stand for students in general. So for me, that's when it comes to education, that is that's a deal breaker for me. So, and like you said, yes, mayor does not have the responsibility. They don't overrule the school board, any of that. I want to be clear that we're putting out real information, not misinformation. But the mayor is also responsible for advocating for people and advocating for students and equity within the public school system. So we need someone that can do that. And in my opinion, Mayor Sharon Westenbroom does a great job.
Yeah.
I've just seen Steve Carter as, the presumptual, standard issue Republican, and that's all I really have to say on him. I mean, and my politics can speak for themselves. My politics normally would not point in the direction of ever voting for a Republican. So that's all I can really say on Steve.
Okay, so that was Steve Carter. What about you, Eric Gayroyd? I don't know if we should even.
Caitlin's like, no, don't.
I don't know, it's like I'm not gonna say anything. I have nothing bad to say about him, but I mean, he's a great attorney. That's all I got.
Yeah, no. I don't have anything bad. Like, that's the thing. A lot of these kids, not something bad. Just random. It was random. That's all I got. Who else?
Random. And I will say this, like Matt Watson, no platform, y'all. Like, come on now. Give us a platform. Give us something.
I agree. It was more like a let's just run to run.
Yeah.
I think that leaves us with Mayor President Broom. We haven't left anybody out, have we?
I don't believe so, no.
Love saying.
Okay, I mean.
I've noticed.
What?
So I love how you say her full title, Mayor President.
Yeah, because I want to.
Exactly it.
I just get the mayor, so that way
Yeah. What is y'all's? Honestly, I feel like I want her to win again because, I don't think she's done doing the work that she started. I think we need to finish. We have great respect for her. We, had intersections with her, in our work, and yeah, I don't think it's the time to change leadership. I hate to say that. I know that sounds so cliche, but I think Baton Rouge is headed in a good direction. I think the parish is headed in a good direction. I don't think now is the time to shift that. What is y'all's case for voting for her again?
So I think for me, I like Mayor Broom. My only caveat is I want her to be a little more forceful in what she wants to do. She obviously is a very consensus style politician. I have no issue with that. But I also want her to be more vocal with taking on some issues. So for me, when the governor moved the state to phase 3, but New Orleans stayed in phase 2, and she automatically deferred to the governor's decision, Mayor Broom. You're the mayor of the parish. John Bell is not elected to run Baton Rouge. He was elected to run the state. And we've seen there's been an uptick in COVID cases. I'm not saying that's her fault. I don't think it is. But it's just one of those things where I've noticed when it comes to some, hardline decisions, she kind of backs away. And to me, that just makes me a little uneasy about her.
Are you making a case for her right now? Or are you making a case against her?
Making a case for her. I still would like her to be reelected. I just say be a little bit more forceful in her policies. I want her, I would like her to move in a much more progressive direction. A much more clearly progressive direction, not pragmatic, but this is where I am. This is where I intend to govern from. And we will make compromises and deals where they are absolutely necessary to continue the work of governing. not for the sake of compromising or making a deal. Makes sense?
Okay. Kate, what's your case for making room? And I'm going to run to the restroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with Angel when she said that the mayor needs 4 more years. I definitely think she has laid the foundation for a lot of good things in Baton Rouge, including her expansion of businesses and initiatives to bring more grocery stores and food access to North Baton Rouge, where there was once food deserts.
Right.
And a lot of mayors preceding her didn't necessarily do that. And so she's, gosh, for me, the list is just so long. And like, I love this woman that to me, it's just a clear cut answer as to who should be our mayor again. And I hope folks really do see this and take it and do some research, really do your research for yourself to see what all she's done. I mean, she's advocated for the LGBTQ community. I understand she herself is like most of us on this call, a Christian woman that believes that we should, extend love to our neighbors, take care of them, make sure that they're not getting discriminated in work environments. To me, she's done an excellent job with the COVID-19 response and making sure that Baton Rougeans are aware of not only just what's going on, but how they can protect themselves and in communicating in that space. As far as law enforcement goes, I think she's done an excellent job by choosing Chief Murphy Paul proceeding after the Alton Sterling incident, just really trying to rally the city together, create initiatives, different racial, what would you call them? Committees, I guess, racial inclusion committees, diversity inclusion committees, in order to address some of the racial issues that we've had just within the last couple of years. And even the relations that we've had with law enforcement have improved as a result of most of the committees that she has put into place. For me, also just advocating for equitable wages on the local level. And I know that she also was a huge fan of Ban the Box and making sure that was implemented on the local level.
I need to get on your level, Kate. I need to
government. Yeah, you're funny. Yeah, no. But yeah, on the city government level, when I understand we want to expand that to private entities and private companies, but she's going to be right there with us to make sure that we do those things and hold some of these private companies accountable as they come to Baton Rouge to get more people on board and more people hired. So, and then also addressing homelessness. I know that's been her top priority, and making sure that we stop criminalizing poverty in and of itself. And the need for us to do away with the cash bail system and panhandling issues, and really taking a step back and dissecting what exactly that means, panhandling means, and aggressive panhandling means, and how we can help those and give resources to those who are homeless or impoverished in Baton Rouge. And then also the transportation system. I know she's been a huge advocate of making sure that we do have reliable transportation, even though, don't get me wrong, don't even quote me, CATS is not the most reliable thing on the planet, and it's still going to take some work. She's been a beacon of help in getting it to where it is today. And I know she's going to continue to making sure that we continue to have reliable transportation and other ways to get around in the city. And yeah, so for me, y'all, there's not too much negative things I can say about Sharon. And I feel like Angel said, and I want to be careful when I say that she deserves 4 more years, because in some context, people would say that about Trump, that he deserves to fix, and continue. And we don't want to, we want to make sure that we're not correlating the two, but exactly, we're not saying that in the sense of to fix what she's broken, but in the sense of, in the last 4 years, she's fixed a lot. She's created a foundation for, like I said, a lot of businesses in North Baton Rouge, a lot of businesses in South Baton Rouge. The list is long, and she should be able to expound on that, better it, and keep going. So I'm excited for 4 more years of Sharon, and I hope y'all are too. And I think her hashtag is I'm with Sharon 4 more years, with Sharon, something like that. Well, yeah, I'm all the hashtags. I love her.
It's like a momentum thing for Sharon.
I'm with Kate on that. I feel like, the reason I give her full title, Caleb, is because her heart's so big. when you talk to her and like you meet with her, like she is in the details. She's in the weeds. She's educated on the issues, and I'm excited about seeing her grow in her power. And I'm also excited. Honestly, when it comes to these women that are doing the thing at the mayoral level across the country, particularly the Black women, like I'm just totally here for that. And I'm more interested in seeing them succeed than trying to find ridiculous ways to claim that they are inadequate or not doing their job. When we have had so many, had far worse administrations, we've had corrupt administrations, she ain't that. And all the other candidates just don't present a for replacing her. Point blank period.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'll stop being excited.
And that should bring us to our final point, and I'd say probably the thing that everybody's wondering why we haven't talked about yet, and it's a presidential election. And we have to talk about our final projections in these 8 days for Biden and Trump's race. What are your viewpoints?
I'll just say this real fast. I know it's getting late and we're not going to be able to stay here long, but I'm definitely down to do another episode if y'all are. Over the weekend maybe, and then throw that out and just talk all about this, because I could talk about this for a whole episode.
Right.
But right off the bat, these final 9 days, I mean, honestly, y'all, or final 8 days, I think Biden wins. I'm not worried about that. Biden wins, hands down. I just think the margin of error in the polls are not what they were in 2016, and the turnout, I think, is going to overcome any sort of discrepancy, confusion, poll being inaccurate. The turnout is everything. My only worry is Trump accepting the results. That's the only worry, is whose job in the government is it to get that man out the White House when he loses.
Right.
That's it.
I agree. And I'll keep mine short, because Angel's right. I could talk about this for hours. I think Biden wins, not just by a small margin. I think he's going to throw it out of the park, or hit it out of the park rather. But my only concern is the reaction after he wins. So I'm hoping that that's civil and normal, and not frightening.
Right.
But I definitely think that Biden pulls it off. So it's at least my worries. I'm amazed and excited for the early voting results that we've gotten so far in the state of Louisiana. They are the largest they've ever been in my lifetime. So I think that's something to look forward to. And to see that Democrats are leading, that's even more exciting for me. And so I sleep well at night knowing that I think Biden is going to get in there.
Yeah. What, Caleb?
What about you, Caleb?
I was joked when she said, I sleep well at night. No,
I sleep well at night. Now, I slept a little bad last night because I heard about the Amy Comey Barrett situation today, but other than that,
right.
I'm okay.
Do you have any thoughts, Caleb?
I'm very confident that Biden will win. I even made a bold prediction that he might win Texas.
Really?
Key word on the might. The only reason I say that is that Texas has voted more Democratic than the polls have suggested. So when Hillary lost to Trump in Texas, he was up by 11.
Mm-hmm.
He won it by 9. Cruz was up over O'Rourke by about 4 or 5. He only won about 2. Biden is up overall by a point in Texas. And if that 2 point, that means he won by 3. So I'm just looking that might be indicative of a trend, but I'm just making that prediction. But I think the Democrats pick up seats in the House. I think Biden wins by a comfortable margin. And the Democrats should pick up the Senate.
Right. I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Definitely.
Yeah, y'all. It's a final stretch. Like, I know we're kind of dead on the energy at this point, but this is a big deal.
It really is.
The final stretch.
And these 4 years went by fast and slow at the same time.
Absolutely.
To see all the different social revolutions and ideas that have transpired, and then just to see, like, it's been 4 years. I remember the exact day and moment I found out Donald Trump won this current presidency. So it's hopefully we can see a brighter day.
Aged. Yeah, like I feel like I've aged a decade.
Right. The stress.
Trump, and yet yesterday he won. I hear you.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Felt
And like you said, a whole nother podcast I can expound on, because I have so much to say about the presidential race. But I hope this podcast here served well in explaining to our peers and just anybody listening about the Louisiana local elections and the amendments that are to be voted on. I encourage everybody to vote. Let your voice be heard. Many people sacrifice their livelihoods for the right for us to vote in this time. So I think it's very important for us to encourage everybody, no matter your race, gender, ethnicity, whatever you abide by, please vote and be heard. Any concluding thoughts?
Thank you.
Oh, no?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, with that said, this has been another episode of Studio 771 on The Bluff. I was your host, Charles Barjon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Charles.
Y'all have a good night.